Briefly, happy Thanksgiving. I hope everybody has a blessed day. I hope everyone has a wonderful and blessed day with their family and friends. I'd also like to pray for the 2 National Guardsmen who were shot in our country's capital. Left or right, whatever side you stand on, we are Americans. And regardless of the side you stand on, our brave men and women shouldn't have to worry about their lives being taken or being maimed in the country that they have sworn to protect our freedom and rights. So I only pray for their lives and their safety. I know some people probably won't like this, but whatever. Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well, and happy Thanksgiving to you all. Today I have one hell of an upload to share with you. We are going to dig deep, and I really hope that you guys enjoy this as much as I enjoy going down this rabbit hole with you guys. Before we get into it, a couple quick links. As many of you may know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. These were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. These audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter and are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into today's upload, shall we? All right, so for a while now, I have been going down rabbit holes and sharing just different things that I find very, very interesting. A lot of which comes out of the majority of the books that I have over there. I've really proven to myself, and I'm not saying to you guys, but I'm saying to myself, I have proven that I believe without a shadow of a doubt that all of this is connected. And I know people are probably getting sick of me saying the title of this book, but Skinwalkers at the Pentagon is probably the most pivotal piece of literature that made me take a look at all of it being connected. From UFO research and investigation by naval intelligence to debriefing at Skinwalker Ranch and having experiences there, those naval intelligence officers, then going home, their family having experiences with not the men, but their family having experiences with dogmen, shadow figures, phantom footsteps, orbs, and more. The research done on Skinwalker Ranch, they interviewed a good amount of people in the surrounding area of Skinwalker Ranch, and the majority of which had Dogman experiences and other paranormal experiences as well. I really believe that these alien grays, the reptilian, the draconian, I believe they are demons. I believe they are demons. I believe they use portals to space and time travel. I'm 100% certain in my own theories that there is a deep underground facility in the northern part of New Mexico going up into Colorado. These facilities that are all throughout our world have been here predate modern day military, so we can't call them dumbs. I think that is probably one of the strangest things, like giving the government credit for creating something that was already there. I mean, yeah, they may have added on, contributed some money to do some add-ons, but the technology was there well before. Where do you think we got it from? So if these grays, these Dracos, Draconian, if they are demons, are the Pleiadians, are the Nordics, are they angels? I'm not really sure. I have not, I have actually gone that deep, but I'm at that standstill where I'm conflicted, because if I say yes, quite possibly these alien-like entities are angels, is that blasphemy? But then scientifically, because I am spiritual, I am a very spiritual person, my relationship with Jesus as my Savior, I do pray. I ask him for forgiveness. I ask him to guide me in the ways that he would want me to go. I thank him daily for my children and my sobriety and everything else that has come with my sobriety. And I ask him to look over others. So my spirituality is very good. It could be better. I don't think anyone is 100% in their spirituality with their creator, whoever it may be. But I'm also scientific. I look at scientific facts and theories. Cryptozoology, paranormal research is a pseudoscience. So I started to look and go deeper into like the Anunnaki and the Sumerian text, looking into quite possibly Nibiru. In Gilgamesh, they talk about giant humanoids. They talk about dogmen. Sumerian text actually talks about a race of canine bipeds, alien canine bipeds. Could they be the descendant of the modern day dogman? Could they be the descendant of the cynocephaly? It makes sense to me. There always has to be a beginning. So I started to read some things the other night, and I was like, whoa, this is pretty interesting. Some Sumerian texts that had been translated. And God is forever. God is all. Under God, there is angels. than humans. If there is a good, there is a bad. If there's a yin, there's a yang. It's just how it is. The devil, you have demons. God, if being all powerful and all created and created all, must have created the devil. But I started to read this ancient text talking about these beings that existed before creation in Sumerian texts. And I'm like, how is that possible? And I went a little deeper, and they consider them, or they call them technically the Sumerian kings. And they were 8 immortal lords that ruled the earth for 240,000 years, supposedly. And these creatures, and I'm saying creatures because they weren't demons, and they were not angels, they were not demigods, they were not gods, they were something different. They were something much different. And as I'm reading and looking into this, I'm like, that's so hard to fathom, because before the creation of earth and before, all of this, there were these 8 entities that existed in the blackness of nothing, weird. But as the text go, it just kept going, and I'm like, ah. And then I started to look more into the Sumerian text, and it's the Nephilim are there, and it's, it's so unbelievably complex and unsettling. Yet the descriptions of these things predate, or these texts, these descriptions of these things, entities, the Sumerian text predates the Bible. So it's like, okay, that's weird, and it does talk about a one creator. There's a one powerful creator. But then these 8 immortal lords, and they are evil looking. They look very animalistic. They almost look like almost canine like, and I'll share at the end of all of this, I'll share a couple of pictures that these things were depicted to look like by the Sumerians. But I also want to get into some other very interesting stuff with you guys too. So it's going to be kind of a very interesting upload. So let's get into it. The Sumerian king list is an archaic stone tablet written in the Sumerian language. It gives us the names and reign lengths of the kings of Sumer, a region that encompassed the space now occupied by southern Iraq. Now, we all have heard the rumor, and I say rumor because it has to be, if you're going to talk about it, unless you were there and you saw why we invaded Iraq and why everything went down. And sure as shit, they found these stairways and these portals and everything. And I believe they did. But I was not there. I was not part of the planning of the event, but I do believe that, there was stargates. There was a stargate found. I believe that supposedly there was a stargate or some sort of portal held secret in or around Saddam's palace, one of his palaces. But, it's very interesting that Sumer or Sumar is where modern day Iraq is. And then you've got these ancient texts that are older than anything that, almost human made. And it makes you wonder, like, okay, pre-Bible, pre-biblical times, what the heck was going on, and why are we so unaware? And why, if there was the history of that time, shouldn't it be in the Bible? And I said this on the live stream the other day. I said it, religion is a business, a corporation. Spirituality is your relationship to whoever you choose to call your creator. Whether it be Jesus, or Jesus as your Savior, the Great Spirit, if you're Native American, Buddha, whoever, Allah, whoever, but that is spirituality. And supposedly the Bible was cut and pieced together, and we were given certain, like, supposedly we were, the Vatican and all of these other establishments that control the narrative of religion only allowed us a certain amount of, knowledge. Imagine what is sitting in the library of the Vatican. Imagine the information. I've often wondered about that. I've often wondered if some of the books that were in the Library of Alexandria are there. But anyway, compiled from several different clay tablets, the final part of the King's List contains the names of historically attested rulers and cities, but these are not the focus. To the Forbidden History community, the first unattested kings on the list present greater interest. Also known as the antediluvian rulers, the first 8 in the list totaled a reign of 242,100 years, in a mythical period before the Great Flood swept the area. Mainstream scholars dismissed the existence of these lords and their impossibly long reigns, citing the fact that no archaeological discoveries support the unusual claims made by these stone tablets yet. The cuneiform words are there. After the first heavenly king's tenure ended, the scepter fell into the hands of Allah Inger, who ruled for 36,000 years. After him, it was Enmenluena turned to sit on the throne for worship for a whopping 43,200 years. The next 5 kings all held office for very long periods of time, the shortest of which lasted only 18,600 years. The coming of the Great Flood, considered by some a global catastrophe, put an end to the reign of these mythical kings. Kish was an ancient city in Sumer, or Sumar, home of the first historically documented Sumerian dynasty. The kings in this dynasty had shorter reigns than the ones before them, but they will still extend way beyond the expected lifespan of human beings in those days. The shortest reign belonged to Zamung, the son of Bar-Salmuna, who remained in power for 140 years. For a long time, historians agreed these impossible timelines were a result of fiction, their reigns and deeds being hyperbolized to increase the significance of the ancient Sumerian in the eyes of the neighboring peoples. By documenting their extremely old history, they could stake a legitimate claim to rule the land. But most historians dismiss the existence of the Anunnaki, the children of Anu. They too came down from heaven to fulfill their own agenda on earth. Now, really quick, I do believe the Anunnaki were those angels that descended from heaven. God sent down. Then they fell from God's grace by falling in love with the daughters of men, creating the Nephilim. So the Anunnaki, I do believe, were the Watchers. And if you are familiar with the Bible and the book of Enoch, some of these angels supposedly, not only did they look human, but also were a reptilian-like creature. The seraphim is a very strange-looking angel. It sits seated next to the Lord, to God himself, and only screams out Lord or God. I don't recall which, but it's very very eerie kind of tale, and I say tale because I don't know the exact terminology of what story. I mean, once again, I am not being blasphemous. I'm only just sharing information. These beings had mastered space travel, and although it is said they came here from the 12th planet Nibiru, their place of origin might as well have been somewhere else in the galaxy. We don't know for sure how many came to this planet. Perhaps he is a product of evolution and natural selection. But if humans were indeed created by someone, there is room for the Anunnaki Genesis theory, which claims man drew his first breath in the laboratories of the Anunnaki geneticists Enki and Ninmah. If these beings were able to manipulate and transform Homo erectus into rational, intelligent humans, it goes without saying they were able to prolong their own lives. This could mean the longevity of the reign of the Sumerian king list could be interpreted as a reality rather than a metaphor. Now, here's something interesting that I want to share. And many of you already know this because, you guys are very interested in the same things that I'm interested in. But not only did the Watchers, or the fallen angels, the angels that fell from God's grace, they didn't fall from heaven. They were cast down. Go, you are bad. No, they came to earth and then fell in love with the daughter of man. And then God said, you are no longer good. You are no longer in line with what I say. So now you shall be no more in my eyes. They not only bred with the daughters of men, but they also bred with animals. The beasts of earth is what they said. And they also had some sort of genetic manipulation, creating creatures genetically. Now, what did we just hear here? Perhaps he is the product of evolution and natural selection, but if humans were indeed created by someone, there is room for the Anunnaki Genesis theory, which claims man drew his first breath in the laboratories of the Anunnaki geneticists Enki and Ninmah. That's scary. Once again, I am not saying that I believe this with 100%. I am not saying I believe it with 80%, 50%, 20%. I'm just sharing information with you guys that is very interesting and does fall into the realm of supernatural, which cryptids and paranormal do as well. If these beings were able to manipulate and transform, okay, this could mean the longevity. For all we know, these celestial beings could have been immortal, or at least impervious to the factors such as aging and disease. If they wielded enough power to be considered gods, it stands to reason they were immune to the troubles that end our short lives. There's always the possibility that we are looking for answers in the wrong places, and the Sumerian king list is half fable, half fact. But amid the controversial topic, one thing is certain. Our planet's history sure is strange. Now, the floods were a way of cleansing the earth from these watchers, their creations, their genetic creations, their offspring with the daughter of men, and men. So not only did God say, I am going to punish the angels, now fallen angels, I'm going to punish you because you broke a vow, a sacred kind of oath that, you just a code of honor to God. You broke that and you created these monstrosities. So I'm going to wipe you all out with this deluge. But I'm going to wipe out man. To me, I've always had a little why? And I know there's going to be people in the comment section, well, this is why, Jeff. Well, that's your theory. That's your theory, I have my own. And until I find a better one, I'll believe mine. But I just find it strange. And I was talking to my dad, Big Jim, about this the other day. So we were talking about the watchers. We were talking about the Great Flood. And I was talking about how the watchers, or the fallen angels, all named, there's names for all of them, all taught us, or taught humans, forbidden knowledge, such as gardening, forging weaponry, not only weaponry, but tools, medicine, cosmetics, and stargazing, taught us about the heavens, taught us about, and I said, and my dad is a very, I always thought it was my mom growing up that was, the diehard Catholic. My mom was a church school teacher. My mom growing up worked at a bank, and then, she was a nurse, got sick of that. Actually, she had a weak stomach, got sick of that, and then went into banking. She's a very smart person. And then from banking, took a break to raise me for a little while. then went into human resource division or department at the hospital and was second in charge of human resources at our local hospital. I always thought but she was a church school teacher during all of this. So I always thought she taught confirmation class and such. So I always thought it was Big Gene that was the diehard Catholic. But no, it was my dad. And my grandfather, his dad, was a devout Catholic as well. And Big Red, that was my grandfather's name, Red. Well, that's what they called him. But he was a very, very intelligent man, but a warrior. World War II, fought in the tank battles in Africa. Just a person that you wouldn't think that would go to church every day. He went every day. 7 o'clock morning mass. He was there. And so me and Jim are talking about the Great Flood. And I was talking about how God punished us for learning this technology this information, forbidden knowledge. And I said, what kind of God would punish his creation made in his likeness? And my dad, I saw his wheels start to turn, and he's like, huh. And then I was like, I think the reason why is because he wanted us to figure it out in a certain time span. Not to have it given to us, but to have it figured out by us. Because he knew what we were capable of. I mean, if we are created in God's likeness, are we created in his what he looks like and what he is capable of? Because humans are quite capable of a lot of different things. If you really go down the list of what humans are capable of, it's kind of interesting thought right there. But he and here's the thing with the Anunnaki being these watchers, quite possibly alien. That would bring us to the angels being aliens, right? So if that's the case, did they teach us this information because they knew he would punish us? Because of the jealousy and disdain for us? And if they were alien and taught us the forbidden knowledge and gave us technology way before our time, if that's the truth, if that is the truth right there, if that is fact, then that only means they've done it multiple times throughout history. Just like when the meeting in the treaties with Roosevelt, Truman, and Eisenhower, give us the ability to create weapons beyond our belief, beyond our feeble minds were capable of creating at that time, because 10 years prior we're fighting in a freaking trench with bayonets and single shot weapons or rotary Gatling guns, barbed wire. Next thing, couple years go by, couple decade goes by and we've created a weapon capable of wiping out civilization. Is that... Yeah, we're smart, but god dang. Anyway, so we were just talking about that, and then we were talking about the great floods and how, if they were global, if it was global, well, some people don't believe that it was. Sure as shit it is, because, it's got to be. It's got to be. Nephilim were all over the world. But right here are 3 great flood stories, 3 stories that predate the Bible. Evidence has been brought forward by a number of archaeologists who agree that a massive deluge swept across the earth between 5,000 and 7,000 years ago. Some argue that this historic flood may have happened, but not on a global scale, as there are those who argue that the flooding occurred in an area of what today would be the Black Sea, in an area many refer to as the cradle of civilization. And while Noah's story of the flood may be one of the most popular ones, the truth is that it isn't the only flood story out there. In fact, there are a number of stories about floods that predate the flood that is described in the Bible. Flood myths can be traced back to the Bronze Age, a Neolithic prehistory. Flood stories are often referred to as new startling points of human history. Ancient cuneiform tablets and the Mesopotamian flood. Translation of the ancient cuneiform tablets discovered in 19th century suggests that Mesopotamia flood may have been the antecedent of Noah's flood mentioned in the Bible. The ancient Sumerian Nippur tablet is believed to describe the oldest account of the Great Flood and the creation of both humans and animals on earth. It also records the names of the antediluvian cities on earth and their respective rulers. In ancient Mesopotamian mythology, we find flood stories concerning the Epic of Gilgamesh, Zostora, and Atreus. In fact, the Sumerian king list divides its history into pre-flood, antediluvian, and post-flood periods. Before the flood had swept across the land, Earth was ruled by kings who had monstrous lifespans. In post-flood myths, their lifespans were drastically reduced. Sumerian flood story is described in the Deluge tablet. It narrates the epic of Zostora, who, after finding out that the gods planned to destroy humanity with a great flood, constructs a massive vessel which eventually saves him from the rising waters. Sumerian king list, we read about the history of mankind, its gods and rulers before the flood. The Sumerian king list suggests how Eridu was the first city on earth. In fact, according to the Sumerian mythology, Eridu was one of the 5 ancient cities that were built on earth before the Great Deluge or Deluge. Sumerian king list reads, after the kingship descended from the heavens, the kingship was in Erudug. In Erudug, Alumim became king. He ruled for 28,800 years. Alajar ruled for 36,000. 2 kings, they ruled for 64,800 years. Then Erudug fell, and the kingship was taken to Bedtripera. In Bedtripera, Enmenluana ruled for 43,000 years. Enmengalana ruled for 28,800 years. Dumuzid, the shepherd, ruled for 36,000 years. 3 kings, they ruled for 108,000 years. Then the flood swept over. After the great flood, Kish is mentioned as the first city of the gods. After the flood had swept over and the kingship had descended from heaven, the kingship was in Kish. A tribe of 22 kings ruled, a total of 22 kings ruled a period of 16,480 years, which make up the first dynasty of Kish. So that's the Mesopotamian flood story. Aztec story of the Great Flood. According to the ancient Aztecs, a massive flood swept across the lands. No matter where we look, we find descriptions of a massive deluge that swept across the earth in the distant past. With a few differences, we can say that nearly all flood stories are similar in one way or another. The Great Flood was supposedly sent by God or the gods upon earth in order to destroy civilization as an act of divine punishment, according to ancient mythology. Before the Great Flood, which took place 4,800 years after the creation of the world, the country of Anunnaki was inhabited by giants, all of whom either perished or were transformed into fish, save 7 who fled into the caverns. When the waters subsided, one of the giants, the great Exua, nicknamed the Architect, traveled to Cholula, where, as a memorial of the Tlaloc, which had served for an asylum to himself and his 6 brethren, built an artificial hill in the form of a pyramid. Not far from the Aztecs, we find another flood story sent by the gods. The Pachacuti is, according to Incan mythology, a flood sent by the god Viracocha to destroy the people near Lake Titicaca. This great flood is said to have lasted 60 days and 60 nights. Before creating humans, Viracocha created a race of giants that inhabited the earth, but he destroyed them in the flood as they proved to be unruly. Viracocha, one of the most prominent Andean deities, decided to save only 2 people in this massive flood, giving mankind a fresh start and bringing civilization to the rest of the world. So back to the Gilgamesh. Many attributed the legend surrounding the great ancient king of Uruk and many of the cities written attributes to mythology. Uruk said to have become famous as a capital city of the king of Gilgamesh, the ancient ruler and hero of the epic of Gilgamesh. It is believed that Uruk was the biblical Erech from Genesis 10:10, the second city founded by Nimrod in Shinar. The Epic of Gilgamesh, written by a Middle Eastern scholar 2,500 years before the birth of Christ, commemorates the life of a ruler of the city Uruk, from which Iraq gets its name. Uruk went through several phases of growth. From the early Uruk period, 4,000 to 3,500 BC, to the Lake of Uruk period, 3,500 to 3,100 BC. The city was said to have been formed when two smaller Ubaid settlements merged. The temple complex at their cores became the Iana district and the Anu district, dedicated to the Inanna and Anu, respectively. In 2003, just prior to the Iraq invasion, which toppled Saddam Hussein, astonishing discoveries were being made in Iraq, accumulating in one of the most extraordinary claims anywhere for centuries, a claim which American forces had been strongly accused of confiscating and subsequently becoming a prime suspect of a driving force behind a complete suppression of one of the astonishing discoveries within the country. In April of 2003, George Fassbinder, of the Bavarian Department of Historical Monuments in Munich, told BBC World Service's Science and Action program, quote, "I don't want to say definitely that it was the grave of King Gilgamesh, but it looks very similar to that described in the epic. We found just outside of the city, in an area in the middle of the former Euphrates River, remains of such a building which could be interpreted as the burial," Mr. Fassbinder said. In the book, Gilgamesh is described as having been buried under the Euphrates in a tomb apparently constructed when the waters of the ancient river parted following his death. He is said in the amazing discovery of an ancient city under the Iraqi desert had been made possible by modern technology. The most surprising thing was that we found structures already described by Gilgamesh, Mr. Fassbinder states. We covered more than 100 hectares. We have found garden structures and field structures as described in the epic, and we found Babylonian houses. But he said the most astonishing find was an incredibly sophisticated system of canals. Here, predictably, is where the story goes silent due to the conflict within the country. It was largely believed the excavations had been halted. However, it seems that the discovery of King Gilgamesh may not have been made in isolation, and apparently some onlookers who were able to record the event. The footage was supposedly leaked to numerous places across the internet and was largely been put down as authentic footage of the find. Shortly after this was taken, reports state that American forces moved in and seized the find. Why do the powers that be see fit to suppress such discoveries? The very real tombs of characters long enough to have been mythical. Osiris being one example among many which have been undoubtedly hidden from the public. Maybe some clues to why his tomb had been hidden lie within the epic and the immense powers Gilgamesh was able to have possessed and said to have possessed. He was the 5th king of Uruk, and his power was so mighty, many believe the stories surrounding him are just myths that were built around him, seeming superhuman strength and endurance. However, serious scholars concluded that the story of Gilgamesh was nothing more than a fairy tale, due to astonishing stories. In the epic, the great king is thought to be too proud and arrogant by the gods, and so they decided to teach him a lesson, sending the wild man Enkidu to humble him. Enkidu and Gilgamesh, after a fierce battle in which neither are bested, became friends and embarked on adventures together. When Enkidu is struck to death, Gilgamesh falls into a deep grief and, recognizing his own mortality through the death of his friend, questions the meaning of life and the value of human accomplishment in the face of ultimate extinction. Casting away all of his old vanity and pride, Gilgamesh sets out on the quest to find the meaning of life and finally some way of defeating death. In doing so, he becomes the first epic hero in the world's literature. The grief of Gilgamesh and the question his friends' death invoked resonate with every human being who has wrestled with the meaning of life in the face of death. Although Gilgamesh ultimately fails to win immortality in the story, his death and deeds live through the writing and word. So he does. Is this below? Are we as a species not capable of being presented things which test our core beliefs without interrupting into chaos? It seems for now, we may just have to find out and wait. Now, all of this, we're learning Gilgamesh, all of this is now centered in Iraq. What is modern day Iraq? Which many of us knew if we've read the Bible or, entertained stories in the Bible and viewed it. I remember I hated going to church as a child. I hated it. To me, it represented like keeping up with the Joneses, Everybody put on their Sunday best and were, I guess the best word to describe it, kind of something that they weren't for the rest of the week, You had people who are dressed in, a nice dress shirt with a tie, slacks and nice shirt or nice shoes. His wife and kids are all slicked out in their best duds. Yet he reeks of booze. Or, you know what I mean? Like, it always reminded me of like this just kind of shit show. And I had brought that up to my mom once. And I said, Mom, I don't like going to church. It's boring. One, it drives me nuts. And, these people are just weird. I'm like, because I know our neighbor, that lived behind us who went to church on Sundays wasn't who he seems to be on Sunday. He's nice on Sunday. The rest of the week, he's an asshole. He just, and my mom goes, Jeffrey, church is important. And instead of focusing on the keeping up with the Joneses, the look at me show, listen to what Father Pat, Father Nugent, Father Hughes, those were the three priests that were at St. Michael's. Listen to their words. And if it doesn't resonate with you, and I distinctly remember, just if it doesn't resonate with you, think of it as a history lesson. Think of it as a history lesson that teaches you morals. And I was like, huh. And it's always stuck with me, I used to love Passover and Christmas time because you got to hear the stories, and it really, I'd go home and take out the Encyclopedia Britannica, and start scrolling through it because we didn't have computers back then, and looking up certain people, Pontius Pilate, different places and this and that. So I did. I was like, huh. And then I loved going to church. I ignored the look at me crowd and just listened for me. So if by chance, this is another thing, it all fell in the Middle East, but going back to the Anunnaki thing, if the Anunnaki in fact did create humanity, or did they? Maybe they didn't. Maybe what these tablets are saying is that humanity was here. And just like what I said 15 minutes ago, these Anunnaki, either quite possibly angels slash, Anunnaki, yeah, the Watchers. Did they have laboratories where they created things? Obviously, they were responsible for the Nephilim. But, there's got to be, if these labs were in existence, wouldn't there be DNA? Well, yeah. Our DNA seems to have been manipulated in the past by beings that pass themselves off as gods. In Sumer, the alien race of gods are known as the Anunnaki. In Greece, the Anunnaki. In the Celtic lore, the Tolutha de Danann. In the scriptures, Torah, Talmud, Old Testament, and other apocryphal texts like the Book of Enoch, they are called the Nephilim, the sons of God, or the Watchers. These Anunnaki are said to have occupied another planet in our solar system, known to scientists searching for this planet X. This planet is called Nibiru, but the ancient Sumerians, and is said to have a long orbit of 3,600 years. This planet, unlike other planets in the solar system, moved clockwise rather than counterclockwise. So that Nibiru, it was a collision of Nibiru with another planet in our solar system, which created Earth according to many of the world's mythology. Gods themselves had their own monarchy with laws of succession similar to our own. And they built a global empire upon the earth with great cities, temples, monuments, and mighty nations established on several continents. They created mankind as a race to work on their farms and mine their golds, among other things. Sumerian legends are very clear. Men was made to bear the yoke of the gods. Men was separate from the gods, like the domesticated animal. And there were great cultural taboo amongst these gods against sharing any other ancient sacred information with humanity, even such as writing and mathematics. Here we go. What? Right there. There's the men was separate from gods. Like domesticated animal, there were a great cultural taboo amongst these gods. Again, sharing sacred information with humanity. The Anunnaki, once again, we are falling into the Anunnaki being the Watchers, because they were punished for sharing things like writing, mathematics, creation of weapons, forging of tools, gardening, certain apocryphary. I probably said that wrong, but just things that we were supposed to come up with on our own. These gods ruled directly over Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Indus Valley, and their rule is recorded in histories all over these three civilizations. At some point, it is told some of the gods broke rank. This was recorded in just about every culture on earth that has written their own history and legends. Some of the gods finding human females more appealing, intermarried with them, breaking a course of major taboo within their own culture and creating a race of human/god hybrids. However, these actions, these interbreeding and sharing such secrets with humans, incurred the wrath of the Most High God. A number of other gods who were disguised as by this breeding. This sparked a massive and devastating battle of the gods that come down to us in the legends of both the wars in heaven and the deluge or deluge. Interesting, this flood is mentioned in the legends of almost every ancient culture on earth. So every ancient culture on earth has its own, and that makes you think about the Pueblo. Why were they just building these caves or using these caves in these ladder systems to avoid animals, or was it to avoid the flood? All right, so we know that the deluge occurred. Some folks think that it only was in the Middle East. There is proof of it happening worldwide. Cause and effect. If there's something there, it's got to be here. These watchers came down from heaven. Daughters of men were all around the world. There was human all around the world. So these watchers did do what they did not only in the Middle East, but all throughout the world. So when the Great Flood hit, not only did it hit the Middle East, but it hit North America. We all know about the monstrosities that some of the American soldiers had encountered during the Afghani war, Iraqi war, red-haired giants, chimera. Well, if that's over there, it's going to be here, right? Red-haired giants? No. Yeah. Red-haired giants here, too. In Lovelock. Paiute, a Native American tribe from Nevada, have an oral tradition that they told early white settlers about a race of red-haired, white, or barbaric giants that their ancestors knew as the Tsetsia. The story is written in 1882 by a Sarah Winmucka Hopkins, daughter of Paiute Indian chief. In her book, Life Among the Paiute, Wrongs and Claims, these giants were described as bloodthirsty, hostile, cannibalistic beings. In the account, the Paiute narrate a great battle which took place at the site now known as Lovelock Cave that led to these giants being described as bloodthirsty, hostile, which led to their extermination. At the beginning of the 20th century, archaeologists and anthropologists found thousands of objects in the cave, leading to a prolonged excavation and speculation about the possibility of the Paiute legend being real. Now, these archaeologists didn't just pop in, holy shit, there's a cave, let's go check it out. No, guano farmers found it. They found it first and said, hey, we just found a whole bunch of old shit in here. Stuff that looks real crazy, like 10-foot tall skeletons. 10 foot to 11 foot, 12 foot maybe. Come check it out. Tsetsia literally translates to tool eaters, Northern Paiute language. Tool is a fibrous aquatic plant. According to legend, the giants wove it into rafts, thus avoiding attacks by the Paiute. The Tsetsia used these rafts to navigate across the lake Lohanta, an ancient lake covering most of the northern Nevada region during the last ice age. As the Paiute tell the story, after years of continuous clashes, all the tribes in the area united to rid themselves of the Tsetsia. One day, as the tribes were pursuing the last of these red-haired giants, they took refuge in a cave. The Paiute demanded that their enemies come out of the cave and fight, but the giants refused. The allied tribes responded by shooting arrows at them and lighting a large bonfire at the entrance of the cave. The smoke scared off a few of the giants, which were then riddled with arrows, while the rest perished from asphyxiation or being burned alive. Over time, the cave entrance collapsed, making it accessible only to bats or driving away any humans. Lovelock Cave is known as Bat Cave, Horseshoe Cave, the Sunset Guano Cave, and the Indian Cave. It's located 20 miles from modern-day Lovelock, Nevada. It's a very old cave predating human presence on this continent, which in prehistory is located in the depths of Lake Lahontan. 1886, Lovelock mining engineer John T. Reed decided to search for the place after hearing legend told by the natives of this area. Reed failed to acquire the evidence. Sorry about that. Lovelock. Reed decided to search the place after hearing the legend, thus proving its existence. Reed failed to acquire the site for archaeological excavation. Two miners, James Hart, David Poe, discovered the importance of guano as an ingredient for gunpowder, created a company, and began exploiting it in 1911. They extracted a layer of guano 3 to 6 feet deep in the cave, only using pickaxes and shovels, and paying little attention to the archaeological pieces presented there. They eventually ended up selling about 20 or 250 tons to a Hawaiian fertilizer company based in San Francisco. Alfred Kroeber, founder of the anthropology department at the University of California, contacted Hart and Pugh when they reported the discovery of prehistoric objects. They promptly sent an excavation archaeologist to Lovelock in 1912, led by L.L. Lode from the university as well. Second excavation was carried out in 24, and after that, Lode prepared a report which would be published in 29. It can be said that everything found and described by him was, or is, to say the least, astonishing. Imagine hearing the legend from the Paiute about these red-haired giants, finding the exact cave where they were burned and asphyxiated, and finding this. 10,000 archaeological artifacts cataloged, including tools, bones, baskets, weapons. According to the report, 60 large mummies were unearthed, also found some of the oldest duck lures, and sandals measuring 15 inches long. A circular stone with 365 notches carved on the outer face and another 52 on its inner face was also unearthed. Scientists believe it to be a calendar. 52 weeks, 365 days. How frickin' weird is that? You know, like, there is no coincidence. These creatures were obviously intelligent, on top of being bloodthirsty cannibals. Most interesting data comes from various datings carried out using carbon-14 plant material found. There dates back to 2030 BC. Human femur appears date 1450 BC. Studies of human muscle tissue found dates back to 1420 BC. Baskets dating somewhere to 1218 BC. Archaeologists concluded that human occupation of Lovelock by its culture must began around 1500 BC. Modern anthropologists refer to the people who have lived in the area as the Lovelock culture, and it is believed that they remained there for 3,000 years. There is some controversy about the veracity of testimonies that claim the existence of these giants. During the initial excavations, the discovery of mummified remains belonging to two red-haired giants were reported, one of them a woman, 2 meters tall, the other belonging to a man, 2.4 meters tall. But we have no received proof of this. Yeah, because it's somewhere in the Smithsonian, hidden, along with other shit that they don't want us to know about. In Sarah Winnemucca Hopkins' book, Life Among the Paiutes, Their Wrongs and Claims, giants were not mentioned, but they were referred to as barbarians. Skeptics claim the chemical contamination of the corpses after burial, more likely reason why the mummies had red hair and not black, like most of the natives in the area. A study conducted in the University of Nevada indicates that the heights of these giants were 1.8 meters, not 2.4 meters. But that is just the that is honestly modern day technology, or modern day archaeologists and anthropologists that work for the government keeping it quiet because they don't want us to know, it's unbelievably amazing, to be honest with you, that in Lake Titicaca, some giants were discovered in Titicaca. What did we learn about a half an hour ago, 45 minutes ago? There was a flood reported in Titicaca, Lake Titicaca. Why was there a flood there? Because there were giants discovered there with red hair and elongated skulls. But then they say it didn't happen. It didn't exist, didn't they? Because that's what they do. They don't want us to know what exists, what's real. Because then they can keep us in this just unaware, ignorant. Call us ignorant, unaware. Yet the people that are housing and hiding these things are probably, well, not probably, 100% more ignorant than you or I, because they don't want to give us that information, which we deserve. We deserve it. It's they cannot hide or keep our history from us. They cannot keep the history from us that is in America or worldwide. It is the history that belongs to us, the people of this world. The 1%, the elite, the New World Order, whatever you want to call them, they cannot do that. They cannot stuff them in the Smithsonian, in the Natural Museum of Arts, or whatever. The Vatican, they cannot keep this information from us. They should not be able to keep this information from us. It should be available to us. In Alexandria, the Library of Alexandria was not just for the elites. It was for all of the citizens. And all of this information that is being held from us should be available to us. I said in the beginning of this upload, there would be a photo of what these Anunnaki or Sumerian text, these 8 immortal beings look like with the Sumerian text. Here is that picture, or those pictures. And here are those pictures that I talked about. The depiction of the Anunnaki, the Sumerian text, that's the Sumerian tablet. Those are the depictions of these Anunnaki, these 8 immortal deities or entities, whatever. They are not gods. They are not angels. They are not demons. They are something else, something other than. And this is those very strange looking. You see the nose, how the nose is. It's almost feline like. You know, it's very very eerie, very eerie. And with that, my friends, I hope you all enjoyed today's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting this channel. It is your support that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, the most precious gift we are gifted. Our pets, the greatest alarm system ever. Our family and friends, those who mean the most to us. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions. Never stop searching for the truth. And God bless you all.